The diplomatic standoff between India and Canada continues as India has now put out a strongly worded travel advisory to all Indian citizens planning to travel to Canada. This is, of course, in response to the Canadian advisory, which was updated for its citizens in the wake of this fresh standoff between Ottawa and New Delhi. Now, Canada's Five Eyes allies, with whom they have intelligence sharing pacts, three of them, the United States, the UK and Australia, have come out and made public comments about this controversy. They are treading a bit of a fine line, waiting for more details on the investigation, waiting for more details of what Mr. Trudeau called credible allegations of potential links with Indian government officials. But here's the interesting thing. None of these allies, none of these treaty allies of Canada have gone on to publicly condemn or censure India or even say that they believe what the Canadian Prime Minister is saying. We've also managed here at CNN News 18 to bring back a video from 2017 where Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the man in question, who was killed in the middle of June in Surrey, in British Columbia, he is seen openly brandishing an automatic weapon, an AK-47, something which is by law not permissible in Canada. So the question is, why is Canada, why is Justin Trudeau and his government going to such great lengths, even potentially jeopardizing one of its most important diplomatic relationships, that with India, when all the other G7 countries are valuing the relationship with India? Why are they doing this, and why are they going to such lengths, all for a person with rather dubious credentials? But first, the story of how this diplomatic standoff between Ottawa and New Delhi has been escalated one notch further a day after those dramatic allegations by the Canadian Prime Minister.
Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty. In the strongest possible terms, I continue to urge the government of India to cooperate with Canada to get to the bottom of this matter.
All right, so this has been a while coming. I want to put a timeline to the events of the last 2 weeks or so. It started with the G20 meeting, on the sidelines of which there was a pull-aside bilateral between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Trudeau, in which there was a very strongly worded statement that came at the end of that pull-aside, where Prime Minister Modi raised the issue of this Khalistani separatism with Justin Trudeau. Trudeau then went on to address a press conference on that same day, and we were all there at the media center when he said, and he tried to frame this entire Khalistani separatism as a freedom of speech issue which is protected in Canada. Trudeau also raised an alarm over what he called foreign interference. He said this in that press conference at the G20. Then, 8 days later, Trudeau claims Indian involvement, potential Indian involvement in the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He says this publicly, he says this in front of the Parliament of Canada. Canada then subsequently expels an Indian diplomat, the station head Pawan Kumar Rai, who was based in Ottawa, the High Commission there. The next day, the Ministry of External Affairs responds to it, calls these charges absurd and motivated and simply meant to divert attention from the safe haven that Canada has become for some of these Khalistani separatist elements. Also, the MEA in that statement says that this was simply to divert attention. India then reciprocates by expelling a Canadian diplomat, Olivier Sylvester, who was also the station head for Canada here in the mission in New Delhi. The MEA then cites concerns over anti-India activities that are being carried out on Canadian soil. After that, Canada updates its India travel advisory in the wake of this controversy, asking its citizens to exercise caution, particularly those who are going to Kashmir and some parts of the Northeast, etc. Then the MEA, in response to that, has updated its own travel advisory to those Indians who are traveling to Canada or plan to travel to Canada, using similar language, asking them to exercise caution. MEA has also urged Indians to avoid sensitive regions and political venues. Now, this is the timeline of what has happened over the last couple of weeks. But here's the thing. This is a video back from 2017. CNN News 18 first aired this video in February of 2017. We have brought this back. This was a video that we accessed through an intelligence source. It shows Hardeep Singh Nijjar using a banned AK-47 rifle. Now, unlike in the United States, in Canada, semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons, assault rifles, are banned by law. Individual citizens cannot carry them. At best, you can carry shotguns, you can carry hunting gear, you can carry, of course, handguns and pistols. But you cannot carry heavy-duty assault weapons like AK-47s. Here you can see Nijjar in this video, not just brandishing this weapon, but you can see him training. Not just himself, but also training other Khalistani recruits. There's one other person who can be seen in this video. This video, like I said, we aired this first in February of 2017. And we're bringing this back to try and underline the point that Nijjar was not some holy soul. He was clearly a person with dubious credentials. We talked about this yesterday as well, that how he took a good 10 years plus to get his citizenship, because multiple times, on at least 3 occasions, his citizenship in Canada was rejected because the immigration authorities felt that he was using dubious means. So why then, and this is the question that we asked right at the top of the show, why is Canada and why is the Trudeau government going to such great lengths to try and defend a man whose record is rather dubious in and of itself? Joining us now, we have a very special guest here in our studios. Raymond Vickery is a senior associate with the Centre for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you very much and welcome to India. Welcome to the studios of CNN News 18. We also have other guests who are joining us via satellite. We have G. Sarthi, former Indian High Commissioner. Lieutenant General K.J. Singh is former GOC&C of the Western Command. And Daniel Broadman is a senior Canadian journalist. Mr. Vickery, I just outlined, the video and this whole tense diplomatic standoff that's been going on between India and Canada. When a Prime Minister stands up in Parliament and says, we have credible allegations of a potential link of Indian government officials in the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, you would imagine that there would be on-the-record evidence or some kind of backup to that claim. Because this is a huge claim to be making of a foreign government, and for a Prime Minister to be standing in Parliament and making that claim. Have you seen any evidence? Would the evidence be shared, particularly with the Five Eyes partners? Would it be shared with India? Why would a Prime Minister go to such great lengths to do this if he's not sure of the evidence?
Well, that is the basic question, and you put your finger right on it. On the face of it, it's astounding and absurd for a Prime Minister to stand up without presenting evidence. And if you look at the language, there's a language about possible and potential and so forth, as opposed to the very facts which would support it. And I think Prime Minister Trudeau is in very, very deep problems unless he can present those kind of facts in pretty short order. You may have seen the film, of course you did, from the parliamentary session when people were backing him up. But already the leader of the opposition is saying, you better come up with the facts and pretty darn quick. Or else your career is basically going to be ended.
What would the bar for that evidence be? How high should the bar for that evidence be for him to have said something like this and so publicly? And look at the ramifications of it. It's literally put the relationship, the diplomatic relationship, in jeopardy.
Well, I think that, the basic criminal bar has to be met. It has to be beyond a reasonable doubt that you can have this, because what you're doing is throwing not only Canadian relations with India into turmoil, but as you've mentioned, all of the Five Eyes are drawn into this, not only the United States, but others. And so after we have made so much progress that I've been personally working on for about 30 years to do this, I think you have to meet a very, very high standard, not just the kind of reports. When I was in government, you saw all kinds of reports from the CIA And some of them panned out and some of them didn't, and that's not sufficient to do the kind of thing that he's done.
So let me ask Ambassador Parthasarathy this. We have put out this video of Nijjar. Like I said, we put it out on air first in 2017. He is seen brandishing and using a weapon which is banned in Canada. Ordinary citizens are not allowed to carry these kind of semi-automatic or fully automatic weapons, unlike in the US. In Canada and most other Western societies, you're not allowed to carry such heavy weapons. So why would a government, a prime minister, go to such great lengths to defend a character who is seemingly dubious? I mean, forget about this video for a moment, Ambassador Parthasarathy. Even his entry into Canada, the first time he applied for asylum, it was rejected. He married a woman there of Indian origin, a Canadian woman of Indian origin. Again, it was rejected because the immigration authorities were not convinced of his intentions. And it was rejected a third time. And somehow in 2015, and this is if you go by the current Immigration Minister of Canada, in 2015, he became a citizen. He enters in 1997. The Canadian authorities wait till 2015 to give him citizenship. Surely, this is not a character who's above board.
Well, look, I think you have to look at the Trudeau factor along with this, many other things. I think he's got himself too tied up with the Muslim and the Sikh population in Canada. He thinks they're going to deliver results to him and has gone out, bent backwards to accommodate them. Especially the Sikhs and now more recently even the Muslim community. So he has these peculiar things. I mean, it's very strange. We had such a close relationship with Canada where our intelligence agency, the RAW, had an official posted there to liaise with Canadian intelligence. And here is this man going completely off the board and forgetting this sort of a relationship. He has, I don't know what sort of deals he struck, but he seems to believe that the limited number of Pakistani Muslims who've come there and whatever have come by way of the Sikhs, they are going to be a great electoral asset. Remember one fact. His own political position in Canada is dicey, close.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been a great prime minister bringing glory to Canada since then. And I think right now, he's going to extremes. He's going to do things which I can't imagine a rational Canadian prime minister doing. And we have reached out to him. Mr. Modi has reached out to him. But the way he has been sort of seeking support from the population which is coming from Pakistan and from this flow of 770,000 Sikhs from India who are being brainwashed by the Pakistanis there. I know where there is a strong Pakistani presence there. And people who have gone, in all honesty, are being made into Khalistanis.
Okay.
So he is guilty of a hell of a lot.
Lieutenant General KG saying, this comes at a time when, the so-called Khalistan sentiment is almost near absent in Punjab. If anywhere it should have been alive, if indeed there is this grouse within the Sikh community and the diaspora is all sort of hyper about it, then, there is no resonance at all, not even an iota in Punjab. In fact, one of our reporters went to Punjab recently to the village of Amritpal Singh, this man who's been arrested now and who's in a jail in Assam. There's not a single Khalistan or pro-Khalistan poster or graffiti or slogan anywhere in that village. There's absolutely zero sentiment in heartland Punjab. So then why should we believe that Justin Trudeau suddenly wants to revive and support this Khalistani constituency? I mean, yes, how much of it is domestic political compulsions? I'm just trying to understand where that domestic political compulsion is coming from, because in the heart of Punjab, like I said, no one is asking for a separate Khalistan state.
Zaka, Jai Hind. It's good to be on your show on a very important issue. The problem is he is being controlled by Jagmeet Singh Dhaliwal Jimmy from National Democratic Party. And what he's managed to do is the Indian diaspora in Canada has got divided also. I have friends there who tell me that it's just the fringe element. The large silent majority is not approving what he's doing. And as a person who's living in Indian Punjab, I have a legitimate query that why are you making it difficult for my state?
Yeah.
There is today our intelligence agencies have put out the list of people who are hiding in Canada, from Lawrence Bishnoi and all other gangs over there. Now, from there, they are orchestrating very dastardly acts over here. In judicial premises, in Ludhiana in a court, they are targeting people like Sidhu Moosewala, who was an icon of sorts, who was a political leader. He had fought an election, though he had lost that election. So you are destabilizing a border state of ours. And how can I tolerate that? You have all kinds of fugitives who've taken shelter over there.
Okay.
And many of them are dependent on drugs. So you are training them, you are arming them, you're funding them, and you are vectoring them to come back and create chaos here. So certainly that is not acceptable to us. And we have a right to demand that you extradite these people, you take action against them. And instead of doing that, he has brought his own diaspora into a divisive kind of state, very irresponsible. And I wonder what kind of a political leader he is, Zaka.
So let me ask Daniel Boardman this. People have been talking about the Five Eyes intelligence pact, sharing pact that the US, Canada, UK, Australia, etc. have. So if indeed the Prime Minister of Canada says that there are credible allegations, A, that intel has to be shared with the other four countries, it has to meet that high bar to the extent that the Prime Minister publicly in Parliament in front of everyone made this serious allegation. And none of these countries, Mr. Boardman, the US, UK and Australia so far have reacted. Their foreign ministers have reacted. And none of them has publicly said anything, either by way of censure or condemnation or even concern about what the Prime Minister of Canada called potential Indian role in the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. So it's not just India that he needs to convince. He needs to convince his own allies to start with, none of whom have taken a position, so far at least.
No, they haven't, and you couldn't expect them to under these circumstances. It's also worth mentioning that Canada's been on the outs with Five Eyes over the last few years. There have been reports that Five Eyes intelligence sharing hasn't been going through Canada because of concerns of, foreign interference from hostile actors, not India. So I mean, from the Canadian perspective, like what's really going on in Canada? This is really a story about Pakistani foreign interference being played as a story of Indian foreign interference, when the real story in Canada should be the Chinese foreign interference. So this is the context of all of this. And you're right. If you want to start a fight with a geopolitical ally, one, don't do that. Two, if it's a major geopolitical ally that has 1 billion plus people and the only possible hedge against China that we have in the world, if you're going to start a fight with them and they share similar allies, and you need your allies to back you, you're going to need some pretty hard proof. You're going to need an email from Modi to assassin McKill, like, CC, I want you to kill this guy in Canada on this date, here's the money. If you don't have that, and I don't think they do, then of course no one's going to back you. Who would be crazy enough to back Canada over India? Listen, we can all have principles, but if you're not going to provide evidence, no one's going to throw away trade deals in a time of inflation and food insecurity and global instability to go along with Justin Trudeau's personal vendetta against India, which is what it looks like to the rest of the world, and it looks like that to 70% of the country here. So I don't understand what the win condition is for Canada. I can't see a win condition. I mean, we just have to hope that he wakes up tomorrow and says, sorry, everyone, I was just using some gendered language. And when I said India did it, that means India didn't do it. Whoopsies. This is the best case scenario we're facing now, because as you said, like there's no way the Five Eyes are going to come in. Our real problem is Chinese foreign interference. This is a story of a Pakistani-funded Khalistani movement metastasizing and getting into our politics and causing a major geopolitical rift between us and an ally. And the Canadian people are frankly being gaslighted in the matter.
How does it play to the rest of the world? I mean, it's evident, especially after the G20 and a successful G20 that New Delhi hosted. The entire Western world, the G7 countries, right, from the United States, UK, Japan, they're all courting India. Albeit, everyone knows the Western world has this view that if a country can take on or be a counterweight to China, it is India. So yes, it is in those interests. And the only G7 country which sticks out like a sore thumb, which is not doing that and which is actively going, I would say out of its way to deteriorate this relationship is Canada. Surely something's off. I mean, when the view from the White House and the view from 10 Downing and the view from Australia at this complete souring of ties, they would be concerned. They would be absolutely concerned about this. Do you think there would be now back channels from those countries to the Canadian Foreign Office and to the Canadian Prime Minister's office that, okay, I mean, you've got to pull this back a notch or two?
Well, I think that it is certainly the case that there are a lot of back-channel communications going on because of the devastating impact that this has. But I don't think it's a matter of just weighing one power against another, who's the bigger trading partner and who's more important. I think really it's a question of values, and I think that the Canadians have to understand how much it is hurting the cause of building peace and prosperity among democracies to do this kind of action. When I was in government, the ambassador from India to the United States was S.S. Ray, who had been governor of Punjab during the problems in the 80s and 90s. And I came to understand from my conversations with then Ambassador Ray how very, very volatile and difficult this is as an issue. And for a prime minister of a country not to understand that the values which the democracies hold dear are being damaged unless there is absolute proof is really unforgivable. And I think, as I say, unless this comes up in very short order, you won't have to worry about Mr. Trudeau in leadership position. He's going to be gone because you can't do this sort of thing.
So you're saying if the so-called credible allegations that he's referring to does not pass muster, forget about Indian muster, does not pass muster with Canada's own allies, the US, UK, Australia, etc., then this is almost like political career suicide?
I think he's finished. I don't think, I'm not an expert on Canadian politics, but I do know that the Canadians share these kinds of values, and they may stand up now if there is a statement like this. But we have parliamentary systems in India and in Canada, and you can see that just doesn't go. You can't just say it and have it done. This is not Russia. This is not China, where when the top guy says it, it becomes the truth. You have to have some proof, and that's the way a democracy is supposed to work.
And the truth has a higher standard. So, which is why I'm coming back to this, G. Parthasarathy. Domestic political compulsions, yes, I buy that. All countries have domestic political compulsions. But what are you putting in the balance in the name of domestic political compulsions? You've a very important diplomatic relationship today is in the doldrums. There are an FTA at a time when, the Western world is dealing with inflation. COVID has depressed growth across countries, across economies. An FTA has been put on hold. There are about, I think, $12 or $15 billion of trade has been put on hold. I mean, the relationship really is in the gutter, and it's entirely of Canada and Mr. Trudeau's making.
I'll tell you one more thing which Mr. Trudeau has sort of destroyed. The fact of the matter is, Canada and India are two countries who have intelligence agents in each other's countries, reporting and gathering information from each other. You've been sharing intelligence in this manner, which we do with very few countries. And because Canada was a plural and is, I would say, a pluralistic democracy. I don't know what has eaten up this young man. His father was certainly a very balanced person and one dealt with. Sure, you had problems, but you dealt with them. But there is, storming in for the meeting with Mr. Modi in Delhi and then, raising all sorts of issues. It is really disturbing. And really, I hope, and I'm looking forward to the West, they will not do it publicly. I hope our Western friends, particularly the US, the Brits, the Australians, they advise him that you're isolating.
General KG is saying
the country, and
one thing that stands out is, okay, there is a school, there is a view that Trudeau's doing this because of personal vendetta, retribution, payback, because of all the embarrassment that he had to sort of suffer here in Delhi when he was here for the G20, whether it was the cold reception he got, he didn't turn up for the dinner on the first day of the G20, his plane malfunctioned. You don't, even if you're doing this for personal retribution, you don't climb an escalatory ladder. In the very first step, the Prime Minister goes in front of everyone in Parliament and makes such a serious allegation against a foreign government. There is an escalatory ladder. You share this intelligence, you raise this with intelligence agents, then you go to the foreign minister's level, and then you go to the heads of state or heads of government level. Again, in private. And if it is not resolved there, then you think of making public action. Mr. Trudeau's first step, at least as far as the reference to the Nijjar case, and I want to point this to our viewers. Nijjar was killed on the 18th of June, right? It's been 3 months since then. Not one person has been named, not one person has been charged for the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And the Prime Minister of Canada goes up in Parliament and says there are credible allegations of a foreign hand. What are we to believe? If there are credible allegations, put them in a charge sheet. Put those names in a charge sheet.
See, Zaka, firstly, I don't fully subscribe to what is reported in some parts of media. India did enough and more than enough to extend all courtesies to Premier Trudeau.
Yeah.
All courtesies were extended. If he chose to skip the official gala dinner and go to a restaurant, it is his call. It's not that we didn't give him the invite. We even offered him the services of an Air India aircraft to take him back. So, whatever he's done is his own choice. And if he came with a premeditated kind of a design in his mind to escalate this beyond his control, then it is his calling. Very immature calling, I would say. And if I was in his place, Zaka, frankly, I'll feel relieved that in this inter-gang warfare which is going on in Sikh fringe groups in Canada, this man, Nijjar, has gone. He was no good to anybody.
Yeah.
He had solid differences with Malik, Ripudaman Singh Malik.
Yeah.
And it is a common knowledge that Nijjar had got Ripudaman Malik bumped off, because Ripudaman Malik had come to Golden Temple, had asked for repentance, and had accepted that he has made mistake. So in this inter-gang kind of a fringe group warfare, if one man is gone and who's not worth putting country's interest at stake,
Correct.
Trudeau should be happy. He's gone by whatever method.
Okay.
For who perishes like this, it is good for them.
Okay, let me ask Daniel Boardman, and I'll end with this. I'm curious to know how this plays out domestically in Canada, what may be the political fallout of it. As Raymond Vickery was saying, if this goes wrong, if the evidence that he claims Canadian officials have, and if he fails to make this public, and if this evidence doesn't meet the high standard that it requires before making such a big allegation in public, does it politically mean the end of Justin Trudeau? Because he's put an entire relationship in jeopardy based on these allegations, which he calls are credible. How does this domestically play out? Pierre Poilievre, who is the leader of the opposition, initially seemed receptive to what Trudeau was saying, but then very, very soon he climbed back and he said the Prime Minister needs to reveal more. He hasn't said anything to me in private any more than what he has said in Parliament. So the onus really is in Trudeau's court, and he has to meet the high standard of evidence to be made available publicly to have credibility to those allegations. How does this play out domestically, politically for Justin Trudeau?
So, yeah, okay. Canadians generally like to stick their head in the sand and ignore things, and we like to think of ourselves as good global citizens. What creates a Canadian controversy is when other international media start talking negatively about Canada. That's when we pay attention. So this is not going to help him. Now, does this destroy him politically? Listen, Justin Trudeau's done worse. He's been caught ethics violations, breaking the law, the SNC-Lavalin scandal, faking intelligence to invoke the Emergencies Act. Justin Trudeau's been able to get away with all of this because, the media is very friendly and, he's judge, jury, and executioner of his own trial. So he's found himself innocent, or his MPs have, on multiple things. This isn't how foreign policy is going to work. He can't get a liberal aligned judge to adjudicate the Canada-India dispute. Now, is this going to mean the end? If it's proven that he was absolutely lying, he's still going to make it to 2025, because the way the Canadian system is now, they have a minority government and they're being propped up in a coalition with Jagmeet Singh and the NDP. And Jagmeet Singh is a hardcore Khalistani. I mean, Jagmeet Singh's already concluded the investigation. Jagmeet's on a plane right now with handcuffs to bring Modi back to jail in Canada. Like, Jagmeet's gotten to the bottom of it. He already knows he's arresting everyone in India. So if this is proven false, is Jagmeet Singh not going to back him? Jagmeet Singh is a man who took 3 tries to admit that the Air India bombing was real, an act of terrorism, and not done by the Indian government. So this is the guy propping up his government. Is that guy going to be unhappy if he's proven to be a flat-out liar about India? No, that just brings him closer. So Justin Trudeau's underwater. The election's going to be a landslide victory for the Conservatives in 2025, though. The problem is the Liberals and the NDP have made this Faustian bargain, and Jagmeet and Justin, they're going to get to 2025, they get their pensions, the parties will get destroyed, but they got another year left to say ridiculous things about Canada and India, and maybe start another geopolitical fight with, pick a random country, who knows where.
Okay, all right. Raymond Vickery, you want to give a closing comment on how you see this playing out for Justin Trudeau?
Well, I see that you have to understand, first of all, Canada only has 40 million people in it. And so there's a greater percentage of Sikh population in Canada than there is in India. So you can see the kind of political pressure that is here. But that is completely insufficient to do what has been done here, but it's the only explanation that seems to bear anything. One hopes that the man will either come up with concrete proof or admit that he's done a grievous wrong, not only to Canada, India, but to the entire international system.
Yep, and to Indo-Canadians more than anything else. I mean, he's put the safety of Indo-Canadians, there are over 1 million of them, many of them with Sikh origins. He's put their safety under threat. He's put their safety under threat by saying that the Indian government and Indian government officials were involved in the killing of a man who openly advocated for secessionism, a man who openly advocated for a separate state of Khalistani, a sentiment that finds almost zero takers in heartland Punjab, right? So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much to all our guests. I don't think this diplomatic story is going to get over soon. At least the sense that you're getting from the Indian government and from the MEA is that they will only reciprocate if Canada takes precipitative action. So they expelled a diplomat, so a diplomat from Canada was expelled. They revised a travel advisory. India's also issued a revised travel advisory. So it is going to be reciprocal in nature, whatever diplomatic action that they take. But we'll wait and see how this plays out, because I don't think this is the end of the diplomatic story between Ottawa and New Delhi.